Hello there. So this is going to be my video on the lesson design, and it's going to be around taxi cab geometry, although the things discussed in this video could also be used for other um, lessons that might deal with, graphing and coordinates and whatnot. So let's get into how it's usually taught versus my changes. So the traditional methods for teaching this, when I learned this in geometry, what happened was this, regular instruction. And by that, I mean teacher talks for like, 30 minutes just about the subject, examples and whatnot. And then we go around and do our work and blah, blah, blah. All used to that, just regular instruction. Playing around on graph paper, right? We draw the shapes, we navigate through this new geometry by just going on graph paper, making, rectangles, triangles, or trying to make triangles, all that stuff, just using graph paper as best we can. And then just exploring the topic through drawing, right? We'll be given like, try to make this shape or try to find this equation in taxicab for this specific shape, blah, blah, blah. We just do all of our stuff, strictly drawing on paper at your desks. So my changes for this would first be, let me move myself. Exploring the topic through moving. I'll get into it more in upcoming slides, but essentially what I'm proposing is that we get the students to be more active, right? Taxicab geometry, it's a new geometry with different rules than, Euclidean, so, you can't make diagonal lines or curves or anything like that. And so distance and moving around has changed, right? Point A to point B is no longer a straight line in most cases. So I think the best way to try and get a lesson going to students on a new type of movement is to just, get them themselves moving. Oops. Documenting movement on graph paper, right? So as they'll be moving around and exploring the grid on their own, they'll be, then drawing on graph paper as they move to highlight, what's going to be translating onto, a more 2D plane. And I do this because, people learn differently, right? Some are more tactile learners, which is where this moving comes into play, but some are more visual. So, they want to see the movement being done with just simple lines and figures like that. So this way, multiple people can kind of get the most out of it, but more importantly, they're all getting engaged with it. So what does it look like? So first, it looks cooler than regular instruction. So at my high school, what could be done was, this usually wasn't used for lessons and stuff, but what they'd sometimes do is just draw chalk on the, pavement because it was an open campus school. So, chalk can be drawn on the floor for open campus schools or any schools that will allow that, right? You'd have to talk to the administrators first if you're gonna if you want to know if you're able to draw chalk on the sidewalk. So if you can't do that, right, like let's say you're an open campus but the weather doesn't permit it, or you're not an open campus so you can't really put chalk anywhere, then what you can do is you can move around the desks in the classroom. Make a coordinate plane with the desks, a grid-like pattern out of them, and have the students move point to point, moving from desk to desk. So we'd have our students, they'd be situated anywhere on a grid, and then let's say they'd want to get to point here. So what they do is that they would, walk along in taxicab geometry ways, getting to their point, discussing how they're getting to their point, why they're moving so, and then, like trying to find the shortest distance between their initial point right here and, their end point here in taxicab, conversing with other students about that, and then as they move around on the grid, they'll be drawing, their movements. So, they move right and then they move up, right, up, right. So, they'd be seeing their movement getting translated onto the piece of paper into what would normally kind of look like in a traditional classroom, right? With just the, only focused content on graph paper. Now they'd be doing it, they'd be moving themselves and seeing how their movement translates to the different forms of movement in taxicab. And then practice is used. The first one is defronting the room, right? If if you're open campus school and you can place chalk on the floor around the outside, then you're certainly changing up the classroom. You're getting the students in another environment, outside preferably too, which is nice. Refreshes the students, gets them thinking. And if you are doing it in the classroom, you'll be moving the tables around, right? So you'll be changing up the environment still, and getting the students to engage with the content by using the classroom as their own setting. And then also instruction towards mathematic learners' identities, because we got tactile learners, visual learners. They get to do, they get to become the math problem in a way. They get to see themselves move through this new kind of geometry, and then they get to see that translated down into how would it normally be presented. And so this way, because it's all about getting them uh, it's all about getting them to learn the lesson through a thing that they're used to and familiar with, right? Everybody's familiar with moving. So and since taxicab geometry is a geometry based around different forms of movement now, it's important that they can see themselves in the place of, you know, their pencil and whatnot to try and get a better grasp on how this movement works, what moves are legal, illegal, and then, how it all translates down to 2D graph paper and, you know, uh, least distance between points and all that stuff. So that is my edit on a course, and this, of course, right, having students move around on a grid in person could also be used for other topics that rely with grids and whatnot, right, like graphing or coordinate planes and stuff like that. So yeah, well, that's the video. Thank you.